What's up, guys? FrugalBC here, and the markets are crashing. Here it is on Tuesday, February 24th. Markets absolutely under fire, but while the panic dip, panic selling the dip, the real alpha is happening in the legal and economic plumbing of the industry. We've got some really interesting news around. First off, the SEC tapping Taylor Lindman, top executive from Chainlink, to lead the crypto task force. That's a pretty big deal. Hitting the March 1st deadline for the Clarity Act. We've got some Clarity Act news that we will look at today. And I'm going to give a little recap of the Algorand Community Call yesterday, talk about some key points and some of my thoughts on what's going on there. So we got a lot of stuff to get into today. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. As a reminder, we are live on YouTube, on X, on Kick, and on Twitch, as well as this will be posted as a podcast later. You can get that on Apple, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I use Overcast. It shows up on there. So as far as I know, it's pretty much everywhere. If it's not, leave me a comment and I will look into it. The community call was very interesting yesterday. I think a lot of people were hoping for more information on Project King Safety, which we unfortunately did not get as much info. We got a little explanation at least, which was nice. Got acknowledged. FrugalBC got acknowledged on the Algorand Community Call. A little shout out for Mark Vandelenberg on there, so that was really cool. Nice to see. But that's going to be our segment today. I'm sorry we're starting a little late today. Sometimes I have a leads meeting on Tuesday for my other business, and that makes me come in a little bit late. But lots of, just because the market is down, and this is, I think, a really important point, just because the market is down doesn't mean that there aren't things to talk about. By the way, you can follow me on X at FrugalBC. Easiest way to find it, at FrugalBC. I changed my handle recently, so if you've got the old handle, it's new, at FrugalBC. You can find me there. And by the way, got a double-digit audience already. If you have not already, please hit the like and subscribe button. Especially that like button really helps get the channel out there, especially early on. The more of you can hit the like button, YouTube starts showing it to more people. So I appreciate that. And we welcome comments on Kick. I can see them on YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and X. So wherever you are, definitely let us know what you think. Give us your reaction to the news. We will bring it up, as we will with Green Blue Algo, who says, "Good morning. FrugalBC promise today is going to be 5+ hours of vibe coding. Buckle up." Well, that's funny. And that's a response to yesterday's community call. There was a really long vibe coding segment around Algorand's Vibe Kit, which I'm like super excited about. I think it's awesome that they built that. I just think it was a really long demo for like the middle of a community call when people really wanted their questions answered. And then there wasn't really time to answer a lot of questions, which was a little bit disappointing. I think giving like a really short demo would have been great if they could have snuck that in there. Kind of like it just was a poor choice. And I say that as someone who's like all in on what Gabe is building over there with VibeKit. I think it's awesome. So don't get me wrong on that. I'm not like hating on that. I just thought it was a little bit frustrating when we really wanted those answers. I think the biggest thing they could have done for the community call is really kept time open, but we'll get to that in our segment. And I'm going to try to like go through this a little quicker than I usually do. So I think we're just going to dive right into, let me see if I have any more housekeeping. Oh yeah, if you could leave us a 5-star review on one of the podcast platforms, I'd absolutely appreciate that. That would help the podcast part grow as well. And of course, if you're tuning in and you haven't subscribed already, we really appreciate that. Newsletter, by the way, frugalbc.beehiiv.com. That is BEEHIIV.com. I'm going to be honest, I don't love that platform. I like Substack better, but Substack does not let you separate your publications as much as I would like. It's all under the same author. And I have two completely separate businesses. I don't want them overlapping, and it's a little bit frustrating. So I pretty much have to go to Beehiiv. But we are doing Tuesday, and oops, I just realized I missed my Tuesday posting. But we'll get that out there. And let's get to the news here. Enough of that, or let's get to the markets actually, because they're not looking great. Let's see. Now I had this set up. Oops. I had this set up for. It's not bad. Let me make it a little bigger here. had it set up for the community call there, but let's see, Bitcoin. So Bitcoin at 64 actually was below 64. It's actually popped up a little bit. It was below 64, which is maybe a troubling line that means we're kind of still in a downtrend. I think a lot of people at this point think this is not going to bounce back up for a while. So if you're accumulating, it is time to accumulate for the projects that you believe in. I'm not going to tell you what projects those need to be. I'll say Bitcoin is definitely one of the ones I just think it's just been the top performer over time. It's the best one in my portfolio. And every time I've tested Bitcoin against other altcoins, Bitcoin tends to do really well. Now, other coins will have a short bump up, but this is just kind of like your slow moving aircraft carrier, which is how I think about my my index funds as well. It's just the slow moving aircraft carrier. You know, it's not going to do anything fast and fancy, but it's also just going to slowly move along, pretty solid, hard to sink, etc. And everything else is kind of like fun built on top of that. But as you can see, just a lot of red. There's a lot of red out there. A little bit of a bounce back in the last hour, but on the 24-hour, we're just seeing a lot of red. Some exceptions. Why don't we just go to the 24-hour right away? By the way, it's still in extreme fear, but actually we're at 5 earlier, so that's not even the lowest that it's been. I'm trying to remember, that was 2 live streams ago, 3 live streams ago. We got EtherFi at almost 10% up. That's crazy. Decred at 8.5. Pippin up 6.4, just about. Kite at 5%. ICP up a little bit. ICP had been crashing before. That's up a little bit. You can see on the weekly it's still down quite a double digits, but something called Lighter. Haven't heard of that one. Pi about 3%. Hyperliquid 2.9%. Monero up a little bit. We're going to see something the opposite of from Zcash there a little bit. Meme Core rounding out the top 10 at 2.36. Now let's see if anybody's on the weekly let's see what the top ones are here. Yeah, this Pippin one is at 56%. Don't know much about that. Kite 23, Decred almost 20% on the week. Morpho 13%. And then we're under the double digits. We got Just at 9%, World Liberty at 8%, Stable at 6.8%, Pax Gold 5.9%. This is like the gold stocks, you know. Hey man, people hate on gold. You know, people really hate it on me. I'm buying milled gold on Algorand. I've been DCAing in. It's one of the best things that it's been performing for me so far, compared to just about anything else. Now this is interesting here. Poly 1.26%, just outside of the top 10 on the week, sitting at just under 11 cents. I actually bought a little Polygon to lower my average. The revenue has been popping in for Polygon. It's actually, I think they had a day where they outpaced Ethereum in revenue. And what I found is revenue really does drive prices, or it's strongly correlated. I shouldn't say it drives it because I don't know which direction it goes, but when you see revenue on a chain, if it has strong revenue, it's probably also has strong price action. That's been holding up. All right, biggest losers on the day is Bitcoin Cash, down almost 11%. You know, I didn't realize this, but I was not really super into crypto yet, not enough to be paying attention to the arguments, but Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin, there was a big argument over block size, turned out not to really matter. I just realized I'm not paying attention to multi-chat, but nothing new. Okay, I'm going to keep that one up. Just really didn't matter. Bitcoin has been taking off. Bitcoin Cash sitting at under 500, so anyway, followed by Humanity Protocol. Actually, Midnight down 5%. That is the new chain from Cardano. Cosmos at 4.76. That had been pumping up a lot lately, so that kind of sucks to see. Pump.fun at 4 down. Nexo, Pancake Swap, Toncoin, Dogecoin down. These are all around 3%. BNB 2.48. Caspa even on that. Well, it's actually outside the top 10. For losers. Again, you notice Algorand, Hedera, they're never on the top gainers and they're never on the top losers. And then what about on the week? We've got Humanity Protocol down 30%. Nothing like too dramatic on the weekly, but it's still not good. Pump.fun down 20%, Athena 18, Arbitrum 17.5, Bitcoin Cash down 16.3, Chili's down almost 16%, Zcash down over 15%. Remember, I said when we were talking about Monero, I said watch out for Zcash. I guess there's some major structural issues on Zcash that are being discussed right now. I don't know all the details. Zcash, not really something I pay a super ton of attention to. BitTensor 13.6, Dash 12, and then finally Jupiter at 11.6. Even got VeChain kind of up there, as long with ICP. Oh man, even Swee's down there, down to 87 cents. And Algorand's down in 17th. So I think that's worth at least looking at. That is, yeah, so like I said, we got Fear and Greed at 11 right now. So not as low as it's been, but it's not great. Starting to shift towards Bitcoin and RSI, slightly in oversold territory. I would, still very much in kind of that middle gray zone. Total market cap, by the way, 2.21 trillion. The residential housing market cap is like 13 trillion. So just to put that in perspective, you can see that as being early. I know a lot of people would interpret it that way. I don't think that's necessarily a bad way to interpret it. So, well, let's go on. We got more stuff to talk about Haystack. We're going to move on to Haystack to look at Algorand coins. As you know, Haystack is a sponsor of the channel, just unleashed the new launch pad, so you can launch a coin super easy. Will I do it? I've been saying for a long time that I would not do it, but we'll see. Yeah, boy, a lot of these have really taken a bath. They actually include the 30-day, but Alpha Arcade down 25.6% on the week and 4.35% on the day. My Alpha Arcade is experiment. This is probably the worst it's been that I've seen. And Haystack down 19% on the week. Most of that coming in the last 24 hours, it looks like. Tiny, however, on its way up at 2.5 tenths of a cent, if that makes sense. This thing was down around 2 tenths of a cent. So it's like it is going in the right direction, 23% up on the week. Now, I know I put a post about this on X, and people got mad because they're like, show the whole thing. Yeah, this thing used to trade at 10 times the price it is now. It was 2.5 to 5 cents. It had been kind of like fluctuating in that range, and then it's been a slow decrease. And what does that teach us, by the way? I'm going to tell you what this teaches us. It teaches us that a coin isn't going to be successful if it's a reward coin. It has to have other utility. And one of the things they did with Alpha, which, hasn't necessarily been paying off lately, but it did overall, is the payouts for holding Alpha come in USDC. So you're not getting paid Alpha. And in fact, when they make those payouts, they use the rest of the fees from the Alpha Arcade prediction market. They use it to buy and burn tokens. So that's like stock buybacks, basically, except imagine the stocks get burned at the end. That's what's going on. Hasn't saved it this week, but the market's kind of in a free fall. Polka Gold is not a gold coin, just so you know. It has to do with Polkadot. Folks Finance actually up a little bit on the 24-hour, but still down to about 10% on the week, which is kind of the story for a lot of these. In fact, maybe we should just look at Mel Gold up 8% on the week. That's what I've been buying into. And like I said, it's probably my best performer right now. Silver's up even more. Let's see what else. Gold Dow is actually down a little bit. Pheasant Pluckers is up a little bit. Gold itself, of course, 17% on the 24-hour. ASA Gold. Actually, Donkey Dow up 3.8%. Someone sent me a donkey. I can't remember who, so I apologize in advance. But I've been able to earn DAO from DDAO from my donkey staking, and I'm able to play the donkey vertical drop game. Maybe I'll show that to you. Just out of curiosity, let's see. I'm going to pull up the 24-hour. Wow, Choice Coin is still around. That's an oldie. That's an absolute oldie. Bunch of tokens I haven't heard of. Frynode's still up there. Yeah, not much really fascinating to talk to you. How about on the week? Environ, Blobfish Bank. There's like a bunch of stuff. Kafila, Botsy, AB. Choice Coin though up 46%. That's an old one. That's been around a long time, unless it's a new version or something. Just a lot of stuff. Not really worth talking about. Obviously, Tiny is in there. Oh yeah, Buttcoin. Buttcoin is 11.5%. And this one was created as almost like a joke, just to show how easy it is to create a meme coin on Algorand. And seems to be hanging on, which is kind of interesting. So anyway, big shout out to Haystack. They are a sponsor of the channel, and they do really wonderful things. You can actually earn yield automatically by holding your coins on Haystack. So something to keep in mind. Also, they have a easy one-click login now. That's something they add, which is good. I have to figure out. I still don't remember what my login. I have to figure out my login for my new phone because I'm logged out now. But let's get over to Saucer Swap Finance here. And let's see what's going on with Hedera tokens. Anything surprising? Everything seems to be kind of holding around the between 1% up and 1% down. BSL took a big drop at 4%. These are the Hedera tokens. This is on Saucer Swap's Explorer tab. So if you guys like Hedera, this is a good page for you. I would love them to be a sponsor. They are not right now, but hopefully someday. BT, well, that's Bitcoin. Hedera version of Bitcoin. Gib is down a little bit. That one actually kind of surprised because some of the volatile ones are not being very volatile right now. Like I said, everything's either like up or down 1 to 2%. HST at 2.4, HSuite at just about 2%. Gold coin at 5.3%. There's a Lehman. There's a Lehman, but they made it look like a lemon. I like that. Creative. Jam is down 11.6%. Appears to be involved with the music industry. CentX is up 10.3%. That's a nice little bump for that. Yeah, there was, like I said, everything holding pretty steady. Even the Sarah, now that was one of the really volatile ones. Oh, and Stickbug at 8.2%. I just get a kick out of this one. I might buy it just because I like the looks of it. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but that is our HBAR coins. One thing I do wish they'd add 7-day as well as 24-hour, but they just added this, so I'm happy that they have it. I like having a Hedera coin page that we can go through. It's kind of cool. So, all right, we got some news coming up, and I think we're gonna start with the. Are we liking a little? Oh, maybe not. Okay. I'm going to go to our. I'm going to recap the community call yesterday. For people that didn't watch it, it was a really long live stream. Some of you probably watched it. I'm going to talk about some of the stuff we mentioned and kind of bring it up. So some of it will be. Let me see. I need a good graphic. Oh, bless it. All right, maybe I won't do it that way. Sorry, this will just be a minute. Meanwhile, if you have not hit the like button already, if you've been watching and haven't hit that button, please do so. And boy, really quiet chat today. Usually we have a big chat. We got Chainlink news coming up as well. And I've got some stuff about the SEC we'll dig up about the Clarity Act. So we'll get into the Clarity Act stuff. But let's talk Algorand first. Just give me 1 second. I really kind of had to put this together on the fly. When I have these leads meetings, it really kind of screws up my morning, but they're so useful for me and my other business that I can't afford to miss them. Green Blue says busy vibe coding. Yeah, I wish. Yeah, that's one of the issues I have is like I love this vibe coding stuff, but it can be so frustrating because I just don't have enough time to do some of the stuff that I would like to do, you know? Anyway, all right, let's start this segment because I think this is interesting. And like I said, leave a like button, hit that like button because we got to get this channel going. We got to get this video going to people. So I appreciate everyone who's tuned in so far, and thanks to everyone who's hit the like button so far. But we will get to our first segment. So yesterday, Algorand Foundation put out this community call for everyone to join in, everyone to listen to, and we were really hoping for some answers around Project King's safety. Unfortunately, we didn't get a ton of answers, but I kind of want to recap the community call for people who didn't watch the whole thing. It was pretty long. It was over an hour. There was a long vibe coding segment that took up a lot of time that I would have rather seen go to answering community questions, as much as I think that stuff is really cool. And I love the vibe kit that Gabe built. A lot of questions that people had didn't necessarily get answered, but we're going to go break down some of that community call and talk about some key points. So and this is what I'm talking about here. This was the community call. And I debated whether to go live on this. Ultimately, I did do a separate live to cover this, and honestly, I probably, if I knew it was going to be going forward, I probably wouldn't have, and I would have just recapped it. But that's what we're going to do now. You can watch the whole thing either on their replay, or you can watch our live stream from yesterday and get my commentary in real time. But I want to go through some of the things to talk about. So, well, the first one, I think, and, you know, a lot of people might say this is the elephant in the room. Everybody in the chat, I mean, there must have been, I bet half the comments were about this, is about Project King safety. And why do we care about this? Well, it's because it's really a revenue versus operations problem. The problem is Algorand has a limited amount of algo they can sell to fund operations. The chain isn't really making much revenue. We don't get the transparency report doesn't really make it clear how much revenue is coming in, unfortunately. So we don't know, but we can get a rough idea based on Algorand prices and how much they sell. And I can tell you, it's not going to be enough. The revenue is not enough to cover operations at the foundation. So Project King safety is kind of like, well, what happens next when Algorand runs out? When all the Algorand that the foundation has runs out, what's next? And there's talk about the potential for uncapping supply. I don't think anyone wants that. So it was pretty clear from every time I've talked about this. There are some people that think maybe it could work, and I do think that's a possibility that functionally it could actually work. However, I got to tell you, I don't think people are going to go for this. I think people will be really upset at this idea of so many people have fixated on hey, there's only going to be 10 billion algo ever. So eventually there's a scarcity there. The demand is the other side of that, by the way. So I think a lot of people are going to just be too upset to actually, to support this, an uncapping of supply. But we'd hope to get answers. And the answer is it's still kind of in the future. So not really coming yet, but you know, another thing I want to talk about is they did mention the 2 billion algo staked milestone, which is good. It's not necessarily, the foundation's share is now under 20%. And that was the whole goal of starting the node staking rewards. The idea was to incentivize it so people would actually run nodes, because they weren't, you know, and people weren't going to, there's a few people that were running nodes, but like the average person just isn't going to put in the time and effort to run a node and not get anything for it. Like, it's just not realistic. As Charlie Munger says, show me the incentive and I'll show you the behavior. And that's exactly what happened. They've incentivized it. Now, I was always frustrated with this because I was doing crazy good on targeted DeFi rewards. I was running liquidity pools, and the amount of Algorand I was getting for doing that on top of fees, it was like the best play in crypto, I think, as far as like stuff that's fairly safe. Well, that's all over with. So, and by the way, I was tending to stick with like stablecoin plus algo. I tried to stay away from a lot of the other coins. They're just too dangerous. There was some good news like stablecoin dominance. USD volume on Algorand jumped 162%, from 223 million to 584 million. That's really good. And monthly active addresses, jumped 62% in January, with new accounts are up 79%. So that's that's really good. And some other things they shared, they talked about, these integrations with Kraken, Allbridge, and Quantos, which is Visa cards, and 111% increase in active addresses for real world assets. Now, the one thing I was a little bit frustrated on was the vibe coding segment, even though I think vibe coding is absolutely I think actually agentic commerce is really going to be the future of chains like Algorand, like Hedera. They're going to be powering, because you need something fast for these little micropayments. You need stuff that's super fast. It can't settle like 3 days later. It's just too slow. Traditional markets just aren't going to work for this. So pretty important point, I think. So I'm all about this, but there was a really long vibe coding segment, and I just really slowed down the call. I think it should have been a separate thing. So a lot of people said that. I think that's correct. It should have been a separate. It's just a separate aspect. It didn't make sense where it was. And then there was a TPS. I brought up some things about TPS that I guess wasn't really part of the call, but something I think is important is that, when we talk about TPS, Algorand's actually been tested in the wild. It's reached between 15 and 16,000 TPS blocks in real time. And so people will talk about Hedera also being 10,000, but it's never the actual chain has never gotten anywhere close. I know DLT, I get it, but it's not gotten anywhere close. So I think that was a little bit, I think that's a really important point, and it's a point in favor of Algorand's, in favor of Algorand, basically. So bottom line is, I think there was some good news shared on the Foundation's call. I think there was some stuff that was left to be addressed that I would have liked to have seen. I hope we get some of those going forward. I think Algorand has some great blockchain technology, but the main thing, we'll have to wait for the Project King safety, which has gone through the reason it didn't come out, by the way, is because there's a lot of councils it has to go through, a lot of approvals. So it's still kind of working through the process, but we're going to get that probably pretty soon in the next couple of months, I think. So keep an eye out for that. That is going to be the big unlock. And keep an eye on these agentic payments, because I really think that's the future of Algorand. So yeah, appreciate you guys tuning in for that. Surprised to not see much chat. I'm kind of surprised about that. You guys are really quiet today. But you know what? Got a ton of Chainlink news to start with, so we'll go to that next. Just as a reminder, if you've not hit that like button already, please do so. It really helps get the channel out to the live stream out to more people, and always appreciated that. I appreciate everyone tuning in. It's interesting. I've been seeing interest in Bitcoin really dropping. And what's has been going up is Bitcoin go to zero, or Bitcoin collapse, those search terms have been like skyrocketing, which is kind of crazy. I think we're fine. This is just a pullback. It's a good time to buy into the stuff you believe in. Turbo Dump says, what's your thesis on crypto in general? I have my own. I have heard you say it just works, but is there anything else to look at? Yeah, and I kind of brought this up at the beginning of the stream, but the biggest thing is revenue. There is a huge correlation between on-chain revenue and price volatility, upside volatility. It's actually pretty shocking once you start running the math, and the correlation is just unbelievable. So, and I can see this from the bull run portfolio that I put together 3 years ago. It was almost 3 years ago now. The chains that have real revenue are actually, they're the ones that I've done the best on. And the ones that don't, like, I love Algorand. I think it works. I think the blockchain technology that it has is second to none, but the revenue, there's no revenue. And as the price drops, the revenue goes down too, of course. But, you know, you look at Solana goes from like $20 to over $200. And look at the revenue. It's one of the top chains for revenue. And you can see that across the board. You know, the exception, Bitcoin is kind of the exception to a degree, even though it actually does fit that. It just doesn't make sense because it really behaves more like gold. But that's my new thesis, and I've just kind of discovered this in the last few weeks, that chain revenue is actually has a huge thing. It depends which, yeah, it depends what you mean. I mean, what do you care about? In terms of pure price, then yeah. I'm assuming you mean an investing thesis. As far as technology, you know, what'll be a long-term technology play, you know, that's why I like Algorand. It does have good decentralization, especially with node running. It's easy to run a node, safety, all those stuff. But look at the chains that do terrible on tech, like Solana, still pumping. So, like, what do you want? You know, do I use Solana? No, I don't. Every time I've tried something out on Solana, it's been a disaster. But, you know, it depends. What do you care about? You know, when you say thesis, do you mean investing thesis? Do you mean you want to make money, or do you want to use it? Not always the same thing. Anyway, we should probably get to this Chainlink news next. Yeah, I mean, say that because the market, you know, I hope the market one day does care about, you know, the actual tech adoption, things like that. But right now, I used to say it's hype, but then I realized there's a strong correlation with revenue. So, I mean, if you mean investing thesis, yeah, that's what I mean. If you mean like actual functionality, it's a different metric. So what are you know, in other words, what are you optimizing for? That's kind of the important thing to delineate there. All right. I'm going to have to cap that because we got to get to the next Chainlink segment, or the next segment, which is Chainlink. All right, the SEC has a new appointment to its crypto task force, and this is going to be great news for Chainlink folks because the person appointed is Taylor Lindman from Chainlink Labs. We're going to look at this piece of news next on our Chainlink news segment. And this is directly from Chainlink. Just in, Taylor Lindman has been officially appointed as chief counsel of the SEC's Crypto Task Force. We thank Taylor for his great 5 years as a key part of the Chainlink Labs team and his role as Deputy General Counsel. We all look forward to modernizing the U.S. financial system together, taking it to the next level of its development and rapid growth. Nice to see that. A lot of people very happy about this. Someone made like, look at that. That's hilarious. I think this is huge because if you can get someone from your team being on the SEC's crypto task force. Now, I know this hasn't translated to price, which really sucks. It seems like we have more and more good news about crypto every day, more and more adoption, more pro regulation, pro crypto regulation, and the prices just keep going down. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. I think we're kind of beyond the days where news really moves price a lot, but you would think something like this would just be huge. But it is what it is, I guess. But congrats to Taylor Lindman, and congrats to Chainlink, because that's a big win, not just for Chainlink, but for everybody in crypto, to have someone right from the crypto industry, and especially Chainlink, which deals with a lot of other cryptocurrencies. Anyway, that is not all. We got plenty of other stuff to get to. We'll give a little Chainlink update on the reserve. I think this is one of the coolest things in crypto. They are taking off-chain revenue. Remember I talked about revenue? I talked a lot about revenue. Chainlink actually not only has on-chain revenue, but they have off-chain revenue from their Oracle services. And so what they do is they take off-chain revenue and they funnel it into Chainlink. And this is called the Chainlink Reserve. Just got another 136,000, almost 137,000 Chainlink, making total holdings of 2.1 million Chainlink. Here they kind of explain it. The Chainlink Reserve is designed to support the long-term growth and sustainability of the Chainlink network by accumulating Link using off-chain revenue from large enterprises, adopting Chainlink, and on-chain revenue from service usage. What do I mean by this, by the way? This is pretty big. This is a lot like a company buying back its own stock, which I think it's usually good for shareholders. I mean, sometimes you would want them. It can seem as sort of short term sometimes. This is like an ongoing program, so it's a little bit different. But great news if you're a Chainlink holder. It's kind of reducing the supply and locking it up, taking real world dollars and putting them on Chainlink. Oh, I got that twice, don't I? It's doing that thing where it mixes them up. Dang it. And I thought this one, Link Futures soon available 24/7 on the world's largest derivative exchange. This comes right from CME Group. The crypto market doesn't sleep. Now your risk management doesn't have to either. 24/7 trading for cryptocurrency futures and options is coming May 29th. So you can manage your risk when you need to. Of course, it says pending regulatory review. So, it might not get it right when they say on May 29th, but as long as everything goes through properly with the regulators, May 29th, you're going to see this as an option. I think Chainlink is just going to be at the backbone of all this stuff. As stuff goes online, more and more stuff goes on chain. Chainlink is going to be the one leading the charge. They've really built themselves as like the backbone of the crypto, kind of like the internet for crypto, as you will. Some people might not like that framing, but sorry, it did that thing where it mixed up all my bookmarks again. All powered by, let's see. I thought this was pretty interesting. Camino is a bright spot for Solana DeFi and starting to win big on RWA's bullish. Now you might think, why do I care about that? This is a Chainlink segment. Well, that's because Chainlink is at the backbone. All powered by Chainlink, Camino, the home of RWAs and Solana. We keep shipping with the best builders on Refinance, Figure, Superstate Inc., Maple Finance, and Xstocks Fi. Like I said, it just always is at the backbone. And sorry we have to keep skipping stuff. Blockchain expansion update. I thought this is worth looking at. Chainlink services have expanded across the following blockchains. We got CCIP. We have ARC, which is in testnet. Doge OS GQ, which is in testnet, and MegaETH. I've been hearing about MegaETH. Don't know a ton about it. CRE, we got WorldChain and Data Streams, MegaETH, and Data Feeds, MegaETH. So MegaETH really going all in on Chainlink, buying all their getting involved with all their services. I've also said Algorand really needs to be CCIP. It needs to get that done. The interoperability is really important, and I know they've done other interoperability plays, but I think I think Chainlink like puts you in the right ecosystem, in my opinion. But I haven't heard a lot about that. We heard generic stuff about interoperability, but I haven't seen anything about Algorand joining CCIP. But I think they should. I thought this was pretty interesting from Johan Eid. It says Chainlink is at the forefront of working on the most impactful initiatives in this space. In the last 2 weeks only, we launched 5-minute markets on Polygon. By the way, he's the chief business officer of Chainlink, so definitely a guy to pay attention to. In fact, I should be following him. I am now. 5-minute markets on Polygon that have already driven more than 200 million USD volume in a single week. That is powered by Chainlink. Robinhood selected Chainlink as the official oracle for its chain, powering all financial activities through its data. We talked about this. We talked about this in our last Chainlink segment, however long ago that was. The Bank of England has spelled Chainlink. I don't even, I think that might get me in trouble. I don't know. Bank of England has Chainlink, we'll just assume it's spelled right, as its partner to reduce real-time gross settlement using blockchains. And last but not least, we launched tokenized equity oracles for Ondo Finance, enabling the use of tokenized equity at the scale in DeFi. So I'm telling you guys, Chainlink is going to be at the backbone of all of this. Absolutely. The future is happening now. It's being built on Chainlink across hundreds of verticals and use cases, from TradFi to DeFi to prediction markets, fintechs, and many more. The list of partners using Chainlink is expanding by the day. What a year you're having. And someone pointed out the price. Hey, this is what's happening across the board in crypto. I'm glad they said this because I think this is something important to keep in mind. Just because, and this is getting to what I was talking about, Turbo Dump, in the chat. This is what I was talking about. The price doesn't always, and tech don't always match. So if it's an investing thesis, you know, I think you got to look at revenue. Now, Chainlink is kind of the exception because the price hasn't necessarily followed revenue. This might be one that kind of counters my thesis. So it's not a perfect one-to-one, but they have tended to, prices have tended to move on chains that also have revenue. And in the background of transparent revenue streams and token holder value accrual. Anyway, I thought that was worth pointing out. Just a good little summary of some of the great news that has happened in the past 2 weeks on Chainlink. Like I said, I think we had a lead news a couple of weeks ago was around Chainlink and Robinhood. And do we have more? I think we might have a little bit more yet. Well, this is their official post. I think we already talked about that though. Yeah, I think that's it. That's a nice little way to cap our Chainlink segment. Thank you to X for jumbling up my bookmarked links once again. It's really annoying that it does that, but I appreciate you guys sticking with me and tuning in for that. Thank you so much in our Chainlink segment. And now we've got okay, so Turbo Dump says that's a good point. I guess I'm trying to straddle the line between safety, security, and inevitability. I have a few more things I could look at. ETH and Solar both attract hackers. Yeah, so I mean, like I said, you know, that's fine, and I think that stuff is important to look at. It's the reason why I buy ETH and Sol and keep it on Coinbase, but I don't do stuff with ETH because it's too slow, it's too expensive. So coming down, it's actually getting cheaper. Gas prices have been pretty decent lately, actually, for ETH. But and then Solana, you know, it's been down so many times. I tried to use Pump Fund, and there's like a complete lack of transparency on their fees. Because I thought I could like practice a little bit with a small amount of Solana, and the fees just eat it up. But you have no idea. You don't see anything on chain about them taking out fees. How do you do that? Like, I don't get that. So like, totally done with Pump.Fund, not touching it. Parable says, I have an unpopular opinion, but I think revenue is good. But once Chainlink gets his hands on all chains, public and private, why would anyone use a public chain? I think crypto needs the ethos. So that's another aspect I think is interesting. I think what we're seeing from enterprise is they absolutely not only want, but demand a privacy layer. So Silvio Macaulay kind of acknowledged this when he introduced Fiat Chain. The idea was he didn't think he thought there needed to be a layer between the public blockchain and companies. Privacy was part of it, but not the whole story. Some people just are worried about the regulatory layer around crypto. Now that might be getting clarified soon, hopefully with the Clarity Act, which we will get to next. I'm going to look for that in a minute. But he was saying, he kind of early on said, hey, we got to, I wouldn't be so sure about this. And it kind of rattled the Algorand world, I'll be honest. It kind of rattled the Algorand world. Because people are like, wait a minute, I thought this was useful. Now, something happened on Algorand where there was a company called TravelX. They were minting airline tickets as NFTs that could be exchanged and sold, and they had some airlines that were doing this. It was one of Algorand's biggest uses at the moment as far as like TPS. They were just doing tons of transactions, and suddenly they shifted away from crypto completely because they found out, the company, a lot of the bigger airline companies, they just didn't want to get involved with crypto. And I think we're seeing this now with some other areas too. So it's something that's kind of important to point out. All right. Well, I want to close out. I want to get to this this idea around the Clarity Act. So let me just set up for this segment, and then we'll get to that. By the way, before we do that, if you have not hit the like button already, I know a lot of you have, and I really appreciate that. But if you're tuning in and you haven't hit the like button already, I would love it if you just give it a little poke. Now, you don't have to smash it. You can just press it gently, and it works just fine that way too. Just a reminder, we are live on YouTube, on Kick, on Twitch, and on X. And these are available as a podcast afterwards too, so you can listen wherever you get your podcast. Just search FrugalBC and you will find it on Apple, Spotify, or wherever. I'd use the Overcast app, and I found it on there, which is pretty neat. Kind of cool to see my own thing pop up there, but just want to give that reminder, and I guess we'll get to our segment on the Clarity Act. Now, when the Trump administration came into power, like a lot of crypto people, I was excited about the possibility of positive crypto legislation. It seemed like we were going to have an administration that was pro-crypto. Trump launched a meme coin. I didn't love that, to be honest, but it wasn't, it was very concerning. I think we thought that a lot of great things were going to happen. Instead, we're still struggling to get clarity on the Clarity Act. We did get the Genius Act passed, and that is a big boost for cryptocurrency, especially for stablecoin usage. And I know the banks are not happy about that. They are not happy that you're going to get yield on your stablecoins because they want to give you 0.1%. They want you to give them the money, and they give you like a 0.5% or something, which you're going to get way more on stablecoins. You can do that on Algorand, Hedera. There's all kinds of places to do that with stablecoins, by the way. So definitely stuff. I think we should do a segment on that at some point. But anyway, the biggest piece of legislation that everyone is hoping will happen is the Clarity Act, which will finally give us some very clear crypto regulations, which is something I think most reasonable people want. Unfortunately, we are still stuck in negotiations. And the midterms are looming, which is kind of concerning because this hasn't been passed yet. And if midterms happen and there's there might be a new change with some of with Congress, and there might be less of a ability to pass this. But let's see what the latest is, because this could be the end. Let's take a look at what the block has to say here. This is direct from the block. The clock is ticking. Crypto's bills 2026 fate hinges on Trump and stablecoin yields. Crypto industry sources who spoke with the block this past week said crypto market structure legislation is hung up on two major sticking points. how to treat stablecoin yield, and how to address President Donald Trump's conflicts of interest in crypto. This is what I was saying. I was pretty concerned when President Trump announced his meme coin. We were trying to get the industry to be taken seriously, and here you have the president potentially profiting off this meme coin. And then there was a Melania one too. By the way, they're all in the dumps. I just want to point out they have crashed and burned like most of these celebrity meme coins. Just a side note: never buy a celebrity meme coin ever. Okay, just don't do it. You're just wasting your money. Senate Banking Committee hearing on Thursday morning with SEC Chair Paul Atkins will be telling on where Democrats stand on ethics. Crypto industry views diverge sharply on the likelihood that Washington will pass sweeping digital asset legislation in 2026, with estimates ranging from 25% to 60% following a turbulent start to the year. John Hammond, head of policy and advocacy at Wintermute, gave those odds a 25%. That's even higher among some of my peers, Hammond said in an interview. Crypto industry sources who spoke with the block this past week said crypto market structure legislation is hung up on two major sticking points. One is how to treat stablecoin yield, and the other is how to address President Trump's conflicts of interest in crypto. So the stablecoin yield is an interesting one because there was sort of a backdoor in the Genius Act. There was sort of a backdoor on stablecoin yields. They didn't allow yields, but they did allow rewards, which is essentially function like yield. And the banks were ticked. They were not happy. They were super mad about that. And I kind of can't blame them. I mean, I obviously I'm on the stablecoin side, but I can see it from their perspective. Of course, they'd be like, they feel like they got bamboozled. And so now there's they're doing a ton of lobbying to try to fix that in the Clarity Act, which obviously if you're pro crypto, you're not going to allow. And by the way, for the consumers, it's absolutely better to have stablecoin yields. I also think it's a little overwrought because I got to tell you, like my parents, they're not going to buy stablecoins. The boomers, they're not going to go buy stablecoins. They're not going to do that crazy crypto stuff. I'm Gen X. Like we're, most of the people I know are not like crypto people either. Now, younger people are more likely to be crypto people, but the younger generations, like eventually, yeah, like if the banks don't adapt, which they should, why don't just do stable coins yourself? Why not? Just offer stablecoin staking. Why fight it? Just join it. It's kind of like the music industry. They fought the digital aspect of it for a long time. And then, Apple came along and said, hey, you can actually make money. People will actually pay $1 because most people don't want to pirate things. I think it's very similar to that. Anyway, stablecoin rewards have emerged as the central flashpoint between banks and segments of the crypto industry. Banking groups have criticized the stablecoin law passed over the summer called Genius. Banks say allowing stablecoin yields could draw deposits away and harm community banks. Again, I don't think it's going to harm the community banks. It's the big ones that are going to suffer. I think, most people right now aren't going to go get stable coins. They just don't trust crypto. Look, it's a 2 trillion market cap. Like I said, the residential housing industry is like 13. So, I think we're okay. Still some in crypto argue that the issue has already been debated and accuse banks of trying to curb competition. I mean, 100% that's what they're trying to do. Of course, they know they can't compete with those kind of returns. Industry meetings on rewards are happening almost daily. One source familiar with the matter told the block. Bank and crypto representatives met at the White House this week for the second time this month in an effort to narrow the differences. During the meeting, banks proposed a set of principles calling for strict restrictions that go beyond the latest draft of a crypto market structure bill. A previous Senate Banking Committee version would bar yields or interest for passive stablecoin holdings, but would allow narrower activity-based rewards or incentives. Interesting. According to one source familiar with the talks, crypto stakeholders really dug in, strongly pushing back against several of the banking sector's proposals, which I think they should. Listen, I'm on the side of crypto. We need innovation. If banks aren't going to address these things, if they're not going to give customers what they need and want, then yeah, they should be disrupted. When's the last time you had a positive experience at a bank? Right? Anyway, still, Kevin Wysocki, head of policy at Anchorage Digital, said he believes that there will be a solution on the stablecoin issue. If the current law remains unchanged, stablecoin rewards would continue to be governed by the Genius Act, which bars issuers from paying direct interest to holders, but does not prohibit third-party platforms such as Coinbase from offering rewards. If the banks want to change, they will want rewards more limited. Then they need a bill. So that is a really important point that I've heard talked about before. You absolutely the ball is in crypto's court. Like the banks right now, the law is like these rewards from third parties are allowed. That's the law of the land. So if the banks don't like it, they kind of have to come to the table. They're kind of screwed if they don't. Anyway, Wysocki put the odds of passage at in 2026 at 50%. Now the prediction markets have had it higher. It's been like in the 70 to 80 range. I'm not so sure. I would bet it's hard to say. You know, the banks are really going to have to cave, I think, to get it passed. Because right now the ball's in crypto's court. I mean, crypto wants, the crypto industry wants the Clarity Act passed, but right now, they're not going to give up ground on stable coins. I just don't think that's going to happen. And I don't see what prevents the banks from getting involved in this and offering rewards on stable coins too. Why not? I don't really understand it. Just join in because they don't want to lose that percentage is why. He says, I think it's because the banks need it. He said adding the people in crypto also really want to build a pass. That's true. A source familiar said stablecoin rewards are the biggest issue right now, and there will be support from Republicans, not be support from Republicans until the issue is addressed. There needs to be a deal, that source said. The conversation needs to turn from principles to red lines to actual text and proposals. The clock is ticking. They gave the chance of a bill passing into law a 60%. I'm like 50-50. I think that's closer. I have my doubts. I hope so, but I have my doubts. I definitely do. Some concerns about ethics. We kind of talked about that. Senate Banking Committee's hearing on Thursday morning with SEC Chair Paul Atkins will be telling on where Democrats stand on ethics. Wintermutes Hammond said. On Wednesday, Atkins faced intense questioning from Democrats in the House Financial Services Committee over the SEC's steep decline in digital assets and Trump's ties to the crypto industry. Trump has raked in about $1.4 billion from his crypto ventures, including from World Liberty Financial, Bloomberg estimated this month. The Trump family also holds a 20% stake in the mining firm American Bitcoin. I heard about that. I think Eric Trump is the one who is primarily driving that. I heard him on a podcast talking about that. Yeah, so I mean, this was something was a little bit frustrating for me, I guess, because it's hard to say. It's hard to turn around and say, hey, crypto is a legitimate industry. It's not like this big thing full of scams and whatever. And then you have like the administration profiting off of it while being in charge of changing the structure around crypto. It's pretty hard to sell, it makes it a hard sell. I hope that we get this passed anyway. Let's look at what's next. We're going to skip down to what's next here. So the bill's fate rests largely with the Senate Banking Committee, according to Hammond. Markup session scheduled last month to vote on a bill was abruptly pulled after Coinbase withdrew its support for the draft. I remember that. That was pretty big. The next markup won't likely be until March, and I believe that's specifically because of stablecoin, if I remember right. I might be wrong. So a lot of people also kind of holding their breath and saying, what does this new draft look like? Well, next it's up to whether Democrats can support the bill. So no Democrats voted yes on a bill. In the Senate Agriculture Committee, voicing concerns about Trump's crypto ventures, it's unclear whether Democrats will support a bill in the Senate Banking Committee. So it's really weird how these aligned. Early on in crypto, for a while, this stuff really wasn't very political. It seemed like it could have went any direction. It wasn't really till I'd say this election where crypto kind of ended up being an issue for Republicans and Democrats. It seems to have gone with the Republicans. Democrats are against it. I think that's mistaken. The Biden administration was very anti-crypto. A lot of debanking of the crypto companies and even crypto banks. One of the, you remember the banking crisis? I don't remember some like Silver Bank and some of these other crypto banks, or I should say banks that supported crypto companies. One of them was taken over by the government, even though it wasn't insolvent, which I think is just crazy. So haven't been a big fan of. I know we all hated Gary Gensler at the SEC, who's some of the practices, this like enforcement or policy by enforcement was just absolutely insane. So I think sometimes we forget that. But prices were going better in a lot of ways. You know, the run up happened even before I think Trump took office, and then started to crash again. So, yeah, I really hope we get this resolved. I think it's something that could be really good for crypto people if it's all in the right spot. So Green Blue says, I feel like Prime minus 1 to 3% is a good compromise for stablecoin yield. Elizabeth is pro bank, therefore anti crypto. Turbo says, it feels like it could set up another financial crisis. I want to go back to, thanks for tuning in. I think we'll cap off our segment here about the Clarity Act, but I appreciate everyone tuning in, and we got a really nice audience today. It's pretty neat. I want to go back and address some of these comments. Oh, Green Blue says, I've been making yield on stables for years, whereas everyone else. Yeah, I've been putting some into folks. Jesse, I wanted to address your comment, TravelX, because airlines do not want to use public blockchain. I feel that privacy plays will cause entities to revert back. I hope so. Yeah, I think a lot of them are going to want to use public blockchains. Because, yeah, I mean, if you're a business, like, you don't want everything out there. Like, I have a business. I don't want everything out there. You know, I don't tell people my numbers. Like, people ask how it's doing. I'll give percentages. I'll say, yeah, it's increased year over year by this percent. But I'm not going to tell you, here's exactly how much I'm making, right? So it kind of makes sense. I think, I guess it surprised me on TravelX because that seemed like a pretty good use case. People talking about ZK proofs, which I think is, yeah, ZK proofs, the zero knowledge proofs, the idea that I can sort of like, I can share, it's like, say I could share my driver's license. You could verify that it meets the criteria that you need without actually being able to see it. I think it's one of the best kind of undersung things in crypto. Definitely. See, Green Blue says I've been making yield. Oh yeah, we got that. Turbo says I provided liquidity on Cardano and changing my strategy to Bitcoin, then using Bitcoin to provide liquidity to the chains I like. Interesting. Yeah, so a lot of chats are really going back and forth on ZK Tech. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, but I really hope we get some passage with this. I really hope we get the Clarity Act passed. I think this is like the main thing I was hoping when Trump won. I was really hoping we got like just sensible regulation. I'm not saying like super pro crypto. It doesn't have to be super pro crypto. I mean, you know, I think people like Logan Paul, who are constantly crypto scamming, which also, like, why are you people falling for this again? I just saw another video of how he's screwing up. Oh, I was gonna like, maybe on Friday I'll do there's a really great video that Atozi did about the latest on BitBoy crypto. Maybe I'll react to that on Friday's stream because it was pretty wild. Well, anyway, I think that was a good live stream. Thanks so much for tuning in. Like I said, we got some interesting news about the Clarity Act. We talked about Chainlink, some really positive news for Chainlink, which I think is awesome. And we kind of recapped the Algorand Community Call. So a lot of good stuff that we talked about. Like I said, thanks for everyone who tuned in, for hitting that like button, for subscribing. Definitely subscribe on your way out. You don't want to miss our future videos. We'll have a live stream on Friday again. So thanks so much for tuning in for that. And you can get these if you can't catch the broadcast, you can rewatch it, but you can also download the podcast. You can listen to it on the go. Like I said, that is on Apple and Spotify and pretty much everywhere else you get your podcasts. Also, if you wouldn't mind, if you like it, you know, like besides just giving this video a like, if you could leave a 5-star review, or even a 4-star one. I take a 4-star if you really, if you really want to. Well, definitely appreciate that. That really helps grow the podcast as well, which we're trying to do a little more in. So thanks for that. And yeah, otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Hope everyone's doing well out there. Remember to stay safe, not your keys, not your crypto.